Do you guys know what's really special about the state of Colorado? Have you guys studied the water cycle already? Yes. You haven't? Seriously? Okay, this
Byron,
is going to be a really fast lesson if you don't know. Where does water come from?
where does it come from?
The mountains when snow's melting.
That is perfect, especially for the state of Colorado. Okay, so we get moisture from up above from the clouds, right? In the form of rain or snow or hail or sleet. So it comes down to the earth. And as we were just told, it goes into the mountains in Colorado. And then as it gets warm, we get runoff that turns into rivers and it flows downstream. So it follows gravity. In the state of Colorado, we are called a headgate state. That means that all the water in our state flows out of Colorado and helps other states. No water ever flows in from the ground into Colorado. We have the continental divide, so a lot of it'll go on one side to the west, and a lot of it goes from the east to the other side. And it goes into different rivers like the South Platte and the Arkansas, the Rio Grande, Colorado River, Yampa River. All of those North Platte goes into feeding other states. And the only other state in the United States of America that's a headwater state is Hawaii. So they have a lot of mountains too and get runoff, and it goes into the Pacific Ocean. So that's Hawaii and Colorado are kind of sister states in a lot of ways, but that's the main way, is the way that water is managed. Jennifer and the Colorado Foundation for Ag and Ag in the Classroom produces the Colorado Readers, and they're wonderful. She has a different topic with it each month. And she produced one that was, where does the water come from? So we just had a little mini lesson. But do you know that we are using the same water today on the earth that was here when the dinosaurs walked this planet? So it is not a never-ending supply. It's the same water that we have to take care of and be responsible with the way that we manage it. So how many of you guys have pets? Dogs, kitties, turtles, fish tanks, yay, horses. Okay, so what do they need every day? Food and water. And do you know that if you're changing let's say you've got a dog in the house, so they've got water in the house, you're changing their water, rather than dump what's left in that water bowl out, you could go water plants with it before you give them fresh water. That's repurposing. That's good conservation, not wasting things. So those are the kinds of things that we like to teach people. What do you guys use water for? Okay, how about cooking? Do you guys like mac and cheese? So you have to boil the water, put the noodles in, and when it's done, you drain it. Well, don't throw that water down the sink. Use that water for another purpose, which usually is you could water something like an outside plant or an indoor plant. But that's a way to recycle. When you brush your teeth, do you let the water run? Do you know you're supposed to brush your teeth for 3 minutes every morning and every night? Well, if you get the toothbrush wet, put the toothpaste on it, and then turn the water off, brush, 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 you don't have to waste water. So there's another way you could conserve water. You can teach that to your parents, guys. That's something so that we can have swimming pools and we can go water skiing and we can use water for recreation too if we take good care of it. How many of you guys have ever been to Eaton, Colorado?
Ooh, that's a lot of hands.
Good. Well, it's kind of one of your sister communities. Go through Windsor to Severance and into Eaton. Benjamin Eaton is one of the forefathers of water. We also have Bill Farr, who there's a library in Greeley named after. But these gentlemen worked really hard to bring water from the west slope through the mountains to the plains, which is where we live, so that they could irrigate. Does anybody know what irrigation means? Have you guys seen how they put furrows in and then they'll set tubes and they can run water down a row to irrigate crops? Or have you seen the big pivot sprinklers that go around? They now use GPS and they'll actually put water in little tubes underneath the ground, which is super efficient use of water because it doesn't evaporate. Because that's one of the ways the water cycle works is after the water hits the ground, then the sun gets to it and it starts to create a little bit of a steam and it evaporates and goes back up into the clouds. So to be as efficient as possible, farmers are trying to find as many ways they can to not waste water and get just the right amount of water to those various crops so that they can grow and be healthy. Jennifer, would you like to expand on that?
You did a great job of covering it, and I know you'll see lots of irrigation happening out in eastern Colorado as well. A lot of them use the pivot irrigations, which were also actually invented by someone that was originally in Colorado.
That's right.
So Colorado has a lot of great ties to water. And it's just important to remember that Colorado is that headwater state. That's a key term, headwater state. So we provide water to 17 other states and the country of Mexico. So our water is really important and we have to conserve it so we can share it with our farmers and ranchers and with the other countries.
Okay, and when we talked, thanks, Jen, when we talked about creating habitats for these various insects, which will be true with hummingbirds and with bats also today, they need a water source to survive. So we mentioned if you guys are going to be using any of those seeds and planting some of those pollinating mixes of flowers in your yards, that it wouldn't hurt to create a little place where they can have water that has some rocks in it so it's shallow, so they have a place to perch if they're drinking it. And Patrick told you about puddling with the butterflies and how they play in the water basically, and it's muddy and there's nutrients in that mud that even help them, that they digest and, you know, helps give them life. So always remember to be sure that there's a water source close to your garden if you want to attract different pollinators to help your vegetables and fruits and flowers thrive and be fuller and bigger and better, because that's an important component.
And if anyone is interested in water, there are a lot of careers in water. So if you want to do something when you grow up, you can think about doing any of the careers in water. There's some where you're outside all the time and you can regulate the water, the ditch runners, and to maintain the water that goes into different farms and different ditches. But there's also a lot in terms of the science and engineering of water. So if you like any of those topics, that might be something you'd want to do as a career when you grow up.
That's a great point. We do a college scholarship program that we just launched, as a matter of fact, yesterday. And it's for graduating seniors that'll be full-time students in the state of Colorado studying any conservation, agriculture, natural resource related fields. So all those that Jennifer just mentioned could be a part of that. So education is very important to our board members. And that's how, one of the ways we get to support citizens in our, within our boundaries. So,
Chrissy,
how are
we have another question in the chat about honeycomb and how it's made.
Oh, go Patrick. Tell them about everything that bees make, because we've got 1 minute left.
Okay, so it says, the question is, how are honeycombs in the beehive created? So bees actually create their own wax. Remember how we talked about from their forehead secretes royal jelly, and from their stomach they have a honey sac that they make honey out of. Well, they also have another area of their body where they secrete wax, and they take this wax and they use it in their mandibles, and they start forming the honeycomb. Now the honeycomb, remember how many sides it is? 6. Yeah, show me with your hands. 6-sided. Yeah, so honeycombs are 6-sided, and they're engineered exactly in a perfect shape so that they use very little amount of wax, because for every a lot of honey that they eat, there's a lot, takes a lot of energy to make wax. So wax is a very, very special and rare resource that they can have. So they try saving it as much as it possible. And the 6-sided hexagon for their honeycomb is the perfect shape for them to save as much wax as they can. So yeah, wax comes from their body, and they use their mandibles, and they make it, and they form it, and they create the honeycombs where they store the honey and the larva.
Awesome. So we just want to go over the definition of agriculture really quick. So it's the science or practice of farming, including the cultivation of the soil for growing crops and for growing crops and rearing of animals to provide food, wool, and other products. So today we're going to learn about Colorado agriculture and the different parts of Colorado that these crops and animals are typically found in. So we're going to next define a region. So a region is an area or division of land that is distinct from another area of land. So today we're going to look at a map where the regions are defined as the different counties in Colorado. Take a couple seconds to look for what region you're in. So we'll be in this top Front Range region in orange up here on the screen. And can anybody tell me what county we're in?
Yell it again.
Nice job. Yep, we are in Weld County. So now we're going to look at we're going to talk about Colorado agriculture. So it is very diverse, and here's a list of things that are grown and raised in our state. While these might not directly need a pollinator, what the animals eat will need a pollinator. Looking at the list, are there any that you aren't quite sure of what they mean? I have a handful that I'll explain, but I just want to make sure that I can help anybody understand if they don't know.
Let's go through the ones that you'll explain, and then we'll circle back to any that they don't know. How about that?
Okay, yep, that works.
All right.
So the first one is barley. So barley is nutritious and delicious, and it is a sweet grain with many health benefits. Unlike wheat, barley is normally not ground up and made into flour, and many people usually just eat the seeds. And then the next one, I'm not sure that you guys know, is aquaculture. It is the breeding and harvesting of fish, shellfish, plants, algae, and other organisms in all types of water environments. So since Colorado is a landlocked state, we don't have access to the fish and other things that are in the ocean. So as you can see from this picture, there are large bodies of water that house individual fish and plant species. Since Colorado, we went through that already. All right, so the next one is nurseries.
One question about aquaculture first. Raise your hand if you think we grow shrimp in Colorado. Do you think there's any shrimp grown in Colorado? We have a few hands up, and yes, you are correct. Out in eastern Colorado, when we get to looking at the map, you'll see where some of the different aquaculture and fish species are grown, but there are definitely shrimp farms in Colorado. It's kind of cool. All right, Casey, nurseries.
Alrighty, so nurseries are a place where plants and animals are grown for transplanting. Transplanting is what happens when a tree, a shrub, or any other kind of plant is moved from one place to another. Commercial nurseries produce and distribute woody and herbaceous plants, including trees and shrubs. And the next one is sod. It is grown and used for lawns, golf courses, and sports stadiums. It is often sold to landscapers or homeowners that want to establish their lawns quickly. Sod is rolled up and transported to different locations and then rolled back out on top of plain soil.
Awesome. So you all should have this map in your packets or in your pocket folder. Should be probably in the front If you want to take that out and take a look at it and look if there's any in that key, any of those that are listed in the key, any of those agriculture products that you don't know about and what they are. And we'll take just a couple of seconds if there's one that you don't know, if you want to come up to the computer and ask about, we can explain it. Otherwise, you guys may know them all. Any others other ones that Casey just explained? Looks like we're good.
Awesome.
You'll keep this map out, and we're gonna go through some questions by looking at the map. So take a good look at the key and kind of figure out those different symbols and where they might be. All right, I'm gonna skip up ahead. Looks like we've got almost everybody with us because we've got quite a few people with us already on Menti. If you didn't get there from the link, you just go to menti.com and then put in that code of 9843347. And if I could get a thumbs up from everybody, if we're all good and ready to go. Mrs. Stickler's class is ready. Mrs. Lorgie's class is ready. Looks like we're good. All right, great.
Alrighty, our first question that some of you have already answered. Cattle are raised in every county. Is that true or false? So if you look at your blue map and the little cattle icon and see where all of the counties those are grown in, are raised in.
Give everyone a few seconds to answer. Got 10 seconds.
Awesome.
Okay.
So that is actually false. Cattle are only raised in 51 out of the 64 counties in Colorado.
Awesome. Next question.
So this is one that Jennifer asked earlier. Where does Weld County rank in production agriculture? Look at the counties that are in blue and up in the top left corner of each of the counties. It should say.
So you can find Weld County and see where it ranks. Give me just a little few seconds to answer here.
Got 5 seconds. Awesome, nice job. Yep, so Weld County ranks first in Colorado for production agriculture. So our next
You might want to
question.
remember that later today.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry.
No, you're good. Where does Weld County rank in the United States? This one isn't on your map. So just take a guess.
So we're comparing Weld County now to all of the counties in all 50 states and where it might rank. Let's give you 10 more seconds.
Awesome, nice job. So Weld County ranks 9th in the United States. So you guys remember all the way back to your pre-test, we had a question about Weld County ranking 1st in Colorado and 9th in the United States.
Awesome.
All right. So what kind of agricultural products are grown in Weld County? You guys can just type the answer in on your screen there. and they'll pop up on Jennifer's.
So I've given you quite a few spaces there to just type in on your screen on your Menti. What are some of these products that are grown here? What are these symbols represent? Let's see, we've got some answers coming in. Got 30 people coming in. Okay, what should we give you?
Awesome.
Let's give you just a few more seconds here. Get all of your responses in. Everyone has kind of seen the corn and wheat, milk and dairy products. Those are some big ones that are grown. All right, look at that cool word cloud we've made with all of your responses.
Awesome. Yep. So
Neat.
Weld County produces corn, wheat, sheep, hay, chicken, trees, cattle, milk, vegetables, horses, sugar beets, and sod.
Awesome. All right, next one.
Alrighty. So where in Colorado are the potatoes grown?
Is it in the north, south, east, or west from where you live? So if you live in Weld County, where do you see those potatoes? North, south, east, or west? Give you 5 seconds or a few seconds left.
All right, so they are grown in the southern part of Colorado, and this area is called the San Luis Valley. So potatoes are grown in the San Luis Valley because of the isolated, arid, and high mountain valley. The summers are warm and sunny, and the evenings are cool, which is the perfect temperature for growing potatoes.
So you can see here on the map those 4 counties: Saguache, Rio Grande, Alamosa, Castilla County. They're big potato growing areas. And actually this area right here ranks 3rd in the country for the fresh market potatoes. So those fresh potatoes that you buy in the grocery store, this area grows the 3rd. There's also some potatoes in Weld County, but not enough to make the map. Okay, next.
Awesome. Next question, where in Colorado is fruit grown? So compared to where you are they grown in the north, east, south, or west?
And the fruit symbol on your map is kind of an apple or a cherry, depending on what you want to call that. Probably an apple. What do we got? Let's give you about 15 seconds to answer yet.
Awesome.
Okay.
So fruit is grown in Mesa and Delta counties in the west of Colorado. The western slope has low humidity, warm daytime temperatures, and cool nights, making it the perfect place for fruit to mature and ripen. We also have melons that are grown in the southeast and Pueblo chilies that are grown in the south.
So those delicious Palisade peaches, they're grown over here on the western slope. And as Casey said, those melons, cantaloupe, and muskmelon are grown down in this region and kind of that southeastern region. So we have fruit all over in Colorado. All right. That was our last question.
Yep. And then our last slide, Colorado agriculture is a critical driver for the overall economy. It contributes $41 billion to our state. And our state is a leader in dairy production and in the number of cattle and lambs fed.
So lots of cool things, lots of great products that we grow in our state of Colorado. That's why we need pollinators, because we grow so many of these products, and especially in Weld County, where you all live, we need pollinators to be able to continue to grow all of these great agricultural products. All right, awesome. That's all we have for you all today. Turn it back over to Patrick and Christy.
Okay, kiddos, we're going to teach you about hummingbirds. Have you ever heard them called hummers? Patrick, why do we call them hummers?
Well, if you hear the hummingbirds, what kind of sound do they hear? You hear them zooming by you. They're and they're kind of making that humming sound. And that's because their wings are flapping so fast that it's like 200 times a second. That's how fast they are. So whenever you say 1 second, 1 Mississippi, they already flap their wings 200 times in that 1 Mississippi that you said. So
you often hear them before you see them, huh, Patrick?
Yeah, you can hear them. And so that's why they're called hummers, because of the sound that they make, because of the fast vibrating, the wings flapping that they do. So.
Well, flowers need hummingbirds and hummingbirds need flowers to be to perpetuate their growth. When a hummingbird, they have a pretty long beak, and they go into a flower with their beak slightly open, and then their tongue is about twice as long as their beak, and that's what they use to slurp up the nectar. So it's quite the process. So we say, since the flowers need the birds, hummingbirds, and the hummingbirds need the flowers, this is a symbiosis relationship, meaning one needs the other and vice versa. So that's pretty interesting. So the bill and beak transfer of pollen, it's very sticky. So it gets on the beak as well as the nectar that they're taking inside for energy. And they need energy because their metabolism is so high. Hummingbirds are New World birds, which means they're in the Americas, North America and South America. So that's something that's indigenous to us here and on our continent. So we're very proud of that. They estimate that there's about 340 species. You guys have asked us great questions about just about every one of the insects we've talked about. And we always come back and say it sometimes varies by species, whether it's color or size or distinguishing males from females. So that's true also with hummingbirds. The reason I think they're so cool is they're so tiny, but they're very fierce and very territorial. They can fly forward. They can fly backwards. They can hover when they're getting pollen out of a flower, and they can even fly upside down. I do believe, Patrick, correct me if I'm wrong, they're the only bird that can do those things.
Yes, they are. And they have a really high metabolism. So they need all that nectar that they go and they get from flowers to keep their, heart going and their wings and everything going, because they have the highest metabolism of all the animals.
Yeah, that 200 beats a minute, as Patrick said, is just, I can't even fathom that. It's so fast. And if you watch them, and we'll see some video here that with this wonderful videography they do, it slows things down a little bit, but it is just amazing to watch. It's just one of the things that makes them so unique. Okay, most hummingbirds weigh less than a nickel or 2 paper clips. You can kind of look at that one way or the other. And you guys have asked us about brains in some of the insects. Hummingbirds' brains account for an amazing 4.2% of their body weight. So that's the largest brain to body weight proportion in the entire bird kingdom, which is pretty fascinating. Patrick, shall we talk to him a little bit about the life cycle? We can show our little flip book.
Yeah.
You guys can see this. When a hummingbird builds its nest and lays its eggs, the average is usually 2 jelly bean sized eggs in the nest. And they make the nests out of natural, how can I say,
Natural resources.
that are available, including spiders, but it expands as the babies hatch, which is pretty darn cool. So it's cozy for the mom and the eggs, but then as they start to get bigger, it expands with them, which I think that's something very special. You don't hear about that happening very often. Now this picture, we just told you the average is 2, and I see 3 babies in this nest, but one of them doesn't look real good. But look at them, their little eyes aren't open yet and their mouths are open, waiting for their mommies to come back and feed them with their beaks. Baby birds aren't the prettiest of creatures when they're tiny. I don't know if you guys have observed that yourself with other species of birds, but I think they're amazingly beautiful. And Patrick has our magazine that he can pull up so you can see all different colors of these various birds. The bee hummingbird is the tiniest, and the calliope is pretty darn small too. And then they get, so those are about 2 inches, but the largest is about 8 inches. So they're very small and very lightweight. Okay, Patrick.
Okay, so like Chrissy said, we have magazines that we have given each of the teachers. And as you can see, we've got ones on hummingbirds and bees and bats and all kinds of things. So you will see all kinds of information to learn about, for example, the bill. The bill is the beak of the hummingbird, and it's able to go into the nectar, into the flower's pistil, and get out nectar. So they open it very slightly and allow their tongue to move very fast in the flower. And did you know that their tongue is twice as long as their beak or their bill? So this is some examples that you can look through and learn about, like, for example, the migration patterns that you can see. They start in May and April and June. You can see them flying in different areas of the United States. Now, did you know that hummingbirds are North American, or are the American birds? They're not found in different places like Europe or Africa or Russia. They're only found in the Americas, in North America, I believe. So they can travel up to 500 miles at a time, and so these are some magazines you can read through and borrow from your teacher and enjoy.
Patrick, I'd like to add a little something to that. As tiny as they are, they're one of the few migrating birds that don't fly in flocks. And they don't refer to hummingbirds as flocks. They call them a bouquet, a glittering, a hover, a skimmer, a tune. They have all kinds of different labels that they use for hummingbirds. And the fact that they don't mate for life is another thing that's kind of interesting with these birds. So they're very independent and feisty.
Yeah.
Because of their high energy that we've told you kids about, they have to eat a lot of food. They usually will eat twice their weight in food in a day. And they don't use their legs for anything except perching. They don't hop, they don't walk. but they will move sideways on a branch or a rod that they're perched on and digest their food and observe their surroundings. They're very protective of feeders. So when we get to your hummingbird feeders, you're going to need to have some tips on where to hang it, because if it's inside of another feeder, you could have a nice little war between the hummingbirds fighting because they're very territorial. So that's kind of interesting. Even though they're small, they've been known to chase off a red-tailed hawk when necessary. They definitely have to store up a layer of fat before the migration time in their life. So that's just an energy source. So they eat and eat and eat before they're going to make that flight. And a lot of times they will fly from Canada to Mexico. So that's a lot of miles to cover. So that's about 2,000 or more. And they fly at a rate of about 25 to 30 miles per hour. Patrick, go ahead and jump in with anything you'd like to share.
Yeah, so talking about pollinators, hummingbirds are great pollinators, and they visit about 8,000 different species of flowers in North and South America. So they are in the South America too. And so they look at flowers like perennials like bee balms, columbines, daylilies, lupines, and other kinds that, for example, even some flowers that are annuals, like impatiens and petunias. So they like that sweet nectar that's inside the flowers. A lot of times the flowers are long and tubular, and they like to stick their bill inside there and extract the nectar. And some of the pollen gets stuck on their hairs and even on their bill. And then it goes to another flower, and that's how they pollinate. They cross pollinate and bring pollen to another flower.
And you guys asked the question about why their wings go so fast, and my answer was just that's how they are made. That's why they need to eat so much, to keep that energy high. And nectar is a form of glucose or sugar, which gives them that kind of energy. And in your pocket folder, we've got a nectar recipe for you guys to put in the wine bottles when we get them done. You'll be making those with Patrick here in a few minutes.
There are lots of engineers out there that they learn from nature how to create wings in flight, flying devices and stuff. So they take a lot of information and examples from nature. And so that's something that maybe we could learn from the hummingbirds to create our own little engineering device. And that's something in the future some of you can learn more about aerodynamics and flight patterns and how to create something like that. So that's a job opportunity there.
Hey, I don't know how many of you guys know about the Air Force Academy and the fact that their mascot's the falcon, and there's a lot of jets that are designed because of what Patrick just said, observing the falcons and the aerodynamics, that the speed with which they can go and dive. And so it's a very accurate thing to think about as far as an example of studying nature to learn and make things better for humans. Several of you have asked us about how long these different insects live. Well, the average for a hummingbird is 3 to 5 years, but some have been known to live up to 12 years. So that varies too, species to species. So you might take that into consideration. And as I said, their clutch is usually 2 eggs at a time. That's the average, but sometimes it's a little more than that. It can be 3. But trying to raise those and bring back enough food to feed them and keep their own bodies, the mamas, going is pretty challenging. And we told you the nest expands with the plant down and the spider silk and all the natural resources that they put together for the nest to expand with the growing hatchlings. So the other thing that's kind of an interesting fact, and it varies species to species too, but some scientists counted the number of feathers on those tiny little bodies, and they say that it's somewhere around 940 feathers per hummingbird, which I can't even imagine that being my job, Patrick, to count the feathers on a hummingbird.
Yes.
But it's interesting that they've done that. You guys, hummingbirds have no sense of smell. That's kind of an interesting fact. But like bees and butterflies, colors attract them. What are their favorite colors, Patrick?
Red. I think
Yay!
red is one of the things that hopefully maybe you put on your hummingbird feeder, but if not, then they also like yellows. And what else, Christy?
Oranges and pinks, just kind of all those bright colors. And we're going to talk a little bit more after Patrick shows you how to wrap your bottle in the wire about where to hang the feeders so that you guys can. Does everybody have their bottle and their wire, teachers? Because we'll show you a video clip if you want to make sure the kids are ready for that, because we're about to move forward with that. So
Okay,
Patrick, I'm going to get my screen ready.
we did have a question in the chat about how fast they can fly. I don't know if Chrissy mentioned that.
I
But
thought I did.
They can fly up to 34 miles an hour.
Per hour. Mhm.
Yep.
So as far as the flapping per second, that can go anywhere from 50 to 200, you know, those figure eights that we talked about, and creating that hum. And a lot of them do create sounds that are kind of like a whistle and a buzzing, as Patrick said. That's why the hummers, we mentioned that right at the very beginning, is their nickname. So those are all interesting factoids to take into consideration. And they aren't necessarily overly friendly to other members of that breed. They want to have their own food source and they don't like to share. So, you know, there's a lot of interesting things about them. But the fact that they can hover like a helicopter makes them very unique.
Can we share them a video?
Yeah, Patrick, I'm going to get that ready while you're, I think
Okay.
I just share from the other computer,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
So just like Chrissy was saying, you're going to see in this video about how hummingbirds can fly in various ways. You'll see a hummingbird fly up, left, right, and even upside down. So you will see this fascinating. So pay attention when we share this video so you can see how the hummingbird, we'll see if you guys can see it flying in the various directions that it flies.
Okay, it takes a minute to cue it up, so go ahead and keep talking.
Okay, so there's about 340 species of hummingbirds that are found in the America. So like I said before, they're a new world bird. They conserve energy. So a lot of times they will, when they're flying around, they're using up a lot of energy, but a lot of times during the day, they will sit on tree branches just to digest their food. So most of the day, they're just sitting around digesting their food. So it takes a lot of energy to fly. So they need to conserve some of that energy as well. So they do go into hibernation sleep state that's called a torpor, and this is to save them more energy. So that's really, really fascinating. We will later on do our hummingbird feeders, and in your guys's packets, in your folders, you have a hummingbird nectar recipe that you will be able to use later.
Color, we've talked about that before, where we've compared the bright colors of peacocks. The males are usually a little bit more colorful than some of the females, but that's not even true all the way through all 340 species. So it's one of those things that we just keep studying. It's not just a specific thing.
Okay, somebody
Sorry.
asked in the chat, how long does it take for hummingbirds to digest their food? And I found the answer is 20 minutes. So that's about how long it takes them to digest their food. So
And Patrick, are you all ready to show? And does everybody have their wires and their bottles and their zipper stoppers?
Yeah,
The corks?
we're gonna go ahead and do our wine bottle hummingbird feeders. So you guys should have already decorated. We've heard that from your teachers that you decorate them, beautiful flowers and all kinds of things on them. And now we're going to put the wire on them that holds them so that they can be held with the zipper stopper and all the liquid inside. You will do that at home, and then it'll be good enough to hold and put in a tree branch or somewhere close in the shade. Okay. So everyone should, in their little baggie, they should have a wire and the zipper stopper. And if you take out the wire and stretch it out so it's nice and straight.
And you guys might have two different varieties of zipper stoppers, but I think we tried to give everybody the same.
Okay, does everyone have their wire and is ready for the next step? Okay, I see you guys stretching the wire out. Good job. All right, so hopefully you can pay attention as I go along. There's a lot of steps here, okay? And we got a lot of youth here on the call, so we want to make sure that we're all together, putting this together. So you will have your bottle like this, and you're going to start by facing the bottle down, okay? And the wire, maybe you're going to go about 8 inches or so. You can see from here to here is about 8 inches, and you're going to start wrapping the wire about 2 or 3 times. Okay, you're wrapping it around the neck of the bottle. So as you can see, I've done it twice here, and I've got a little bit left on the end here. Okay. So if you can see, I've wrapped it around twice or 3 times at the very, where the bottle is shallow, where it's right at its neck, okay? So you can see here's the opening of the bottle and here's the neck, and I've wrapped it around 2 or 3 times. And then what you're gonna do is with this little extra piece that's left over, you're gonna twist it around the extra long piece that you have left over. So I twisted it, and now it's twisted together, and I've got this long piece of wire ready for the rest of the step of the bottle. Is everyone at that point? Make sure that when you wrap it around 2 or 3 times, that it's pretty tight, that is wrapped around pretty tight, okay? Okay, we're having the teachers walk around and just make sure that we're ready for the next step. So I'm going to repeat myself one more time. We wrapped it around 2 or 3 times, and it's at the very end of the wire. So you can't do it in the middle of the wire because then you'll need the rest of the wire to wrap around your bottle. So right at the end of the wire, you wrap it 2 or 3 times, and then you twist the remaining wire with the long piece of wire that's left over. Okay? If I can get a thumbs up from the teachers if we're ready for the next step. Like I said, the last about 8 inches of the wire, the very end of it, you wrap it around a couple of times at the very neck of the bottle. Okay, and then you twist the remaining wire with the extra wire so you have all of it, all the wire at the end wrapped around, and then you have a long piece of wire that's remaining. And we're going to work on that at the end. All right, so we're going to go ahead to the next step. So you wrapped it a couple of times and now you have this really long piece of wire, okay? So now what you're going to do is you're going to take this long piece of wire and you're going to start moving up the bottle. And you want to take the wire and put your finger on it about halfway through where the bottle is. You can see that here's the opening of the bottle, and I move the wire. This wire goes up halfway up the bottle, okay? And right at halfway, you're going to take it and you're going to do a 90-degree turn. So 90 degrees is like this. It's a corner. So you're going to turn it all the way around the bottle. You're wrapping it around this bottle until you reach that corner again. You see? See how I wrapped it around and now I'm back at that corner? Well, we're going to do it twice. So we're going to go around it again. Okay? Until you reach that corner again. So now I have it wrapped around twice like that. Does that make sense? So let me show you one more time. You go up along your bottle, you make a turn and you wrap it around twice around the middle of the bottle. Okay? You want to do about exactly the middle of the bottle, not too close to your other wrapping. So you want to do pretty much the middle of the bottle. Okay? And you want to wrap it twice. You don't want to wrap it more than twice because you need extra wire to make the hanger, which is the next part of the step. Okay? So when you wrap it around twice, this is the next step. So everyone pay attention. You want to take this remaining wire. You want to find the end of it. Find the end of the wire. And you're going to go underneath all these wires. Right where that corner is, you're going to go underneath. You're going to go underneath all this wire. And you might need to loosen it a little bit. But you can tighten afterwards. So I'm pulling that wire underneath. And now I'm going to pull it tightly. And you want to make sure that it's pretty snug. Okay. So there I have it. So I see how this went underneath all those wires. And now I have a long piece of wire that's remaining. Yeah, I see some people already having theirs pretty much. Mrs. Lorge's class has it. One youth that has it pretty much. Okay, yeah. So good job. I see some that are already at this step. So let me go through it one more time. So what you're going to do is you're taking your long piece of wire and you're making a bend, a turn, and then you're going to wrap it around twice. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take this remaining wire and you're going to go underneath all those wires. You're going to go underneath all the wires in the middle. And then you're going to have this extra long piece. So now the next step is you're going to take it and you're going to make a loop, and this is where it's going to hang. And then the end of your wire, you're going to go underneath these wires and attach it and twist it to itself again. So you're going to go underneath these wires again. So I'm going underneath the wires with my extra wire, and then you're gonna twist it to itself so that it's twisted together. You see that? So now I've got a loop, a hanger that holds it, and the bottle should be complete by it like that. Teachers, are you doing okay? Do you need any help explaining something? So I'll go over all the steps one more time real quick. So we began with a wire at the end and we looped it around a couple of times. We tied it to itself, and then we ran the wire up halfway to the bottle, and we made a 90-degree turn and we wrapped it around the bottle a couple of times. And then the remaining wire, we went underneath the corner and all those wires, and we took the wire up around, made a little hook, and then we wrapped it around to itself again. I think that should do it. If you guys need help, then I think the teachers are going to help. But if Chrissy wants to maybe explain some bats and maybe introduce bats.
Well, let's talk about where the feeder should go first, Patrick.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. So guys, this is really kind of important to listen to. We told you about the recipe in the front pocket of your folder, and it's just sugar water. It's very easy to make, and you need to change it once a week so it doesn't get salmonella or any mold growing in it, because then it wouldn't be healthy for the little birds. You need to hang it in a place that doesn't get the afternoon sun, because that also would increase it going bad, but kind of in a shady spot so that it glitters and it's very easy for them to find, and not within sight of any other feeders, because you don't want one group to see the other group, or the fight will be on, just like in the video that we showed you. So you need to separate them. And as we mentioned earlier, they need to have a good water source. That's very important. And if you're putting them close to your house so you can observe them, you need to make sure if it's by a window, it has stickers on it to avoid any kind of a catastrophe where the bird would fly into the window. It should have a perching spot. So if you're hanging it from the eaves or anything, make sure you have a shepherd's hook or something so they have a place to perch and observe their environment and to digest their food while they can be quiet. Something that we didn't mention is at night, hummingbirds go into kind of a hibernation type stupor. I think that's how you pronounce it, Patrick. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Where they're just totally at rest. So their metabolism, their heart rate, everything drops during the nighttime while they're very still. And that's just because they need all that energy for all that flying and that activity that gives them such a heart rate and burns so many calories. So red, we've talked about what a good color that is to attract them, and you'll see a lot of store-bought feeders that are decorated in reds just because it helps to attract them. And around native plants, so where you have planted your pollinator garden and close to trees so that they have protection, but it needs to have enough space around the feeder so that they can maneuver so they're comfortable when they're feeding. So no more than 15 feet away from windows, but no closer than 5 feet, just for the birds' protection so that they don't run into a window. And no direct sunlight. I think we've hit the high points.
Yeah.
easy afternoon access, not in too much intense sun, so kind of shady. Insight so the birds can find it, but not so obvious. So if there's predators out there, even that praying mantis that we saw in the video can go after them. But raccoons, bigger birds, all of those things can be a little bit of a threat to these delicate birds.